Mercer from Expedition Kayaks, and today we're going to be talking about the Audax sea kayak. This is our own design. We started design work on it almost 8 years ago. 6 years ago, the very first production boat rolled off the press, or out of the mould, so to speak. So we've had 6 good solid years to learn everything we can about the performance of this boat. Today we're going to talk about many of the design aspects of it and how it fits in. We hope you enjoy this review and you add the Audax sea kayak to your list of must-try boats when you're next looking for a new sea kayak. When we first hit the water with the production sea kayak, we were often asked, in fact it was probably the most regularly asked question, why another sea kayak? You know, it's not like there's any shortage of models out there. In fact, there are hundreds of designs of sea kayaks on the market. So it was a fair question. Why another sea kayak? Well, even though there were already quite a few decent ones out there, we felt that we had something to offer to this market. We had a particular design brief that we wanted to satisfy, and we had a pretty good idea of how we were going to go about it. We needed a boat that would carry lots of gear, had some glide like a surf ski, gave reward for effort, good ergonomic seating position, lovely acceleration downwind, could sail well, and was fitted out to the highest possible standard. So how do you do a review when you're the designer of the product? Very, very tricky. Obviously, I'm going to say good things about it. After all, I designed it. Nevertheless, to try and give you an overview of the thought that went into it, the way that we went about it, I thought what I'd do today is break it up into some sections. So we're going to talk about the hull, we're going to talk about the shape of the hull and how it works, we're going to talk about the deck, all the things that we tried to incorporate into the deck in order to make it a true expedition kayak. And then we're going to talk a little bit about who we think the boat's for, how we think it's succeeded, and where it's heading in the future. So let's start off with the hull. You'd be forgiven for saying that the bow of this boat is strongly reminiscent of a surf ski. And that's not the end of the similarities there. As you work your way down the boat, if you were to have a really close look at this boat, especially with the hull up, you would notice an awful lot of similarities between this kayak and a modern ocean racing ski. That's no coincidence. We've been strongly influenced by ocean racing skis, and that makes sense. Around the world, the shapes that sea kayaks have taken has always been strongly influenced by how they've been used and what they've been used to do. Ours isn't a convoluted, complicated coastline. Ours is a big, open coastline in Australia. There's ground to cover, there's distance to make, where often our environments are dominated by longshore winds, which allow us to plan quite long trips with a reasonable expectation of following seas. We need to carry lots of equipment with us. We need to carry lots of water. It's nothing for us to have to carry 40 litres of water with us. So, to the Australian eye, this surf ski looking sea kayak actually doesn't look so strange, because we're used to seeing craft very similar to this, used for racing, and have been doing for a very long time along our shores. So in a way, you could look at the hull form and the way we want this hull to perform, and you could reasonably say that it's a product of our environment. The things that you would notice paddling this, if you're used to paddling a more conventional sea kayak, would be the glide. The fact that the boat gives you a lot of reward for effort. Put in the right stroke, get plenty of run. The other things that you'd notice is that the boat is absolutely born and bred to run downwind. Catches runners, in a way that you would almost mistake it for an ocean racing ski. Of course, it's not an ocean racing ski for all of that. It is a sea kayak, and to carry that gear, to give you the cockpit configuration so that you can roll it, edge it, and do all those really cool sea kayaking things, it needs to be a compromise of design, or at least a harmonising of two different worlds, the world of sea kayaking with the world of fast ocean skis. The maximum beam of this boat is only 52 centimetres wide, so it's not as wide as a lot of entry-level skis, but it carries a lot of volume fore and aft, and it does that so that you can carry that extra gear. There are two benefits of that particular extra volume. One is that the boat actually behaves very predictably and doesn't get pushed around so much in cross-chop and rebound. And the other one, other than the obvious of being able to carry load in places other than in the seat, is that the boat doesn't lose its essential character, its running character, the way it wants to race through the waves. It doesn't change greatly when it's got a load on board. The whole shape of the boat doesn't change dramatically, whether it's heavy or light, and it's surprising how similar your performance will be with a full boat versus an empty boat. A couple of the trade-offs: it does predominantly track from the bow, and it is a boat designed to paddle optimally with the rudder. Given our paddling environment, the sort of conditions we're in, that need for efficient distance to be covered, travel along an open coastline, not many landings between one spot and the next, this all makes sense for our world. While we're talking about the hull, I thought it would be worth having a little bit of a talk about the rudder as well. One of the key points of this rudder, or one of its main features, is its very deep draft. And that's largely achieved by this very low pivot point. That's why we've chosen this transom mount rudder bracket, to allow us to get a deep draft with a relatively short blade when it's not deployed. All of these things make for very efficient control of the boat, control of tracking, and a very reliable, simple mechanism that's simply spring-loaded. So just before we go any further and talk about the deck in any more detail, I've got a little admission to make. This isn't a brand new boat, as you may have already worked out by all the scuffs and scrapes. There's quite a few war stories behind some of the damage that's been applied to this boat, but it's a credit to the builder that it's still in such good shape. So if you see a little scratch or a scuff, you know what it's all about. I promise you it won't be on your brand new boat. Now, the first thing we have down here is a strong point, and this strong point is matched by another strong point at the other end. This is a stainless steel bar. It's set into the boat and it gives you unparalleled strength compared with the deck fitting. Onto this we have a spliced Dyneema cord, so there's no chance of getting your fingers caught between it, and a standard carry toggle. If you go back down here, you'll see we've got the uphaul line for the rudder. Now, our uphaul line doesn't sit up on the deck. It runs smoothly through a tube into a cleated connection right next to the cockpit. Our rudder tubes are similarly located. Everything to keep the deck clean and stop running gear from being cluttered on the deck. Just moving forward, and before we get onto the deck fittings, my boat is custom fitted with a Railblazer quick port on the back deck. This is for mounting a camera or a light, and this is one of the positions we use with a high pole to get some of the angles that you'll see in videos of us catching waves downwind. Further forward, I've also got this reed spare paddle holder on the back deck. I particularly like this, and I've fitted this myself. But those are both customised fittings. They aren't part of the standard fit out of the boat. The deck fittings that we have here are all fitted using captive nuts. So what that means is there's a nut moulded into the underside of the deck, and the fitting is screwed into that. That stops them leaking and it makes them very secure. The grab lines that we have around here, quite important part of a sea kayak. These are 6mm retroreflective line, and the 6mm retroreflective line, we believe, gives us a really nice combination of suppleness. They're thick enough not to cut your hands, and that retroreflective feature is very handy. If there is any stretch, you'll notice there's a little tensioner down that end that can be used to take up or loosen the deck line to get it just the right tension for you. Our hatches, we use universally the Kayaks Sport hatches, and we use the formulation that has the silicon edge with the hard centre. This is their premium formulation, and it certainly gives you we believe the best compromise between sealing and strength. Now we have the cockpit combing. Cockpit combing, often not fully appreciated for the values that it adds to the boat. Ours has a fairly large radius at the front, at the bow of the boat, and this is to make it easier to release your spray deck. Tight forms are very hard to release the spray deck, so this is a safety feature. Also, our cockpit combing is relatively wide across here to give your knees plenty of room to move when you're paddling in a knees up position, and you've still got thigh braces you can hook your legs under if you want to do a roll. Just before we move on, our back band is a back band using a polyethylene strap. Very simple. We fix it through a single screw, and that allows it to be more of a lumbar support than a back band, although if you want something to hold you upright, you can screw it in at the back as well. I'd recommend over time it makes a lot more sense to get used to sitting up straight without needing it, in which case that's a nice comfortable position to be in. If you look inside the cockpit, you'll find that we have the Bigfoot system, which needs no introduction. It's a standalone product in our range, a premium standalone product, and works very, very well in our Audax sea kayak. Forward of the cockpit, you'll notice a few non-standard features. I've got deck cleats here. These are for my sail, and I've got this fantastic deck bag that I've chosen to fit on permanently through my bungees. And this comes from Dave Barlow's excellent Outwear product range. Like so many of the other features in this kayak, they're locally made. The back band's locally made, deck bag's locally made, even the ropes are locally made in Australia. So wherever possible, we've tried to choose Australian products wherever they've satisfied the criteria of being at least as good, if not better, than what's available worldwide. From there, we move forward to the compass, and we've got a compass recess, and we've designed the compass recess so it drains into this hatch recess and then out over the side. Now, the actual recess location is quite important. You don't want it to be so far forward that it's difficult to read, but by the same token, you don't want it to be so close to you that you can't sight a bearing or paddle a course by lining up the lines on your compass with the bow of your boat. So that's our compass, and at the moment we fit a silver steering compass as the standard compass for the boat. Forward hatch, the only remarkable thing about the forward hatch is that it's a 10-inch rather than an 8-inch, and this gives you almost the same level of access in and out of the hatch as if it was an oval hatch. So that makes packing this voluminous bow of the boat even easier. Our kayaks come as sail ready. By sail ready, I mean that the whole area, the whole footprint of the area that is used to set up your sail fittings is actually all reinforced. Every Audax is reinforced in such a way that it can be fitted with a flat earth sail without any extra under the deck engineering. We have, in this case, you can see on my boat, already put some loops here. These are for back stays, these are for side stays, and right in the middle here we have a lovely little flat section which takes any of the various universal sail-based mounts that are available for the flat earth sail. From here right up to the bow, and again we've got a strong point, this time a tube through the bow of the boat, another spliced Dyneema single cord toggle carry point and a deck tension. So here's the wrap. What do I think of it? Well, I love it. I must admit, every time I get in it, I know I'm going to have a good time, and I associate so many happy memories, so many great days on the water with this kayak. Everything from gales in Bass Strait, screaming down winders on the New South Wales coast, endless long lazy rides on the local bar at Bundeena, sitting out there until the salt water just runs out of my nose. I've also used it as a fishing platform on beautiful, clear coastal waters in Queensland, paddled long trips into remote tropical islands on the Queensland coast. So for me, this is more than just a boat. It's a way to go places, experience things, and it always looks after me. It's not just about going fast or going from one place to another. I always feel comfortable in my kayak. So now you know what I think about it. What are you going to think about it? What do other people think about it? Well, obviously we always thought it was going to be a pretty good boat because we called it Audax, which is Latin for bold or audacious. But what we thought was never going to be as important as what you think. With 6 years of reviews, 6 years of feedback, so many of these boats out on the water, I no longer need to guess whether the boat has lived up to its name because we have that information. We have that information from so many people who've used it. Not just elite paddlers, not just people who've gone and done extraordinary things, and in some cases, things that have never been done before. We've also sold possibly 50% of these boats to people who've bought their sea kayak, their Audax sea kayak from us as their very first kayak. And to me, that's just as rewarding as the big trips or the long distances or the high speeds, is the fact that this is a boat that gives people access to all the adventures that are available to you in a sea kayak. Thanks everyone for taking the time to watch. I hope you've sat down with a nice cup of tea or your favourite drink and found this informative and helpful. There are obviously going to be a few micro details, little bits and pieces you may not have been able to glean from our review, and we're happy to answer any of those questions for you. You'll find more information on our website, expeditionkayaks.com. You can phone Mark or I with any inquiries you may have, or drop us an email. Thanks again for your time. I hope you enjoyed our review. See you out on the water sometime soon.